So hi, everyone. We can start the event now. Welcome to this latest and I would say very special, most special of webinars organized by the International Manifesto Group, in which we reflect on through pluripolarity to socialism, a manifesto 1 year on. My name is Radhika Desai and I'm the convener of the International Manifesto Group. As you know, the International Manifesto Group began as a bit of a discussion club. We have members all over the world and we seek new members from more places all the time. We represent a substantial diversity of currents of socialist thought, and we meet roughly fortnightly, sometimes more often, sometimes a little less often, to hold Zoom events on major issues and events. We launched our manifesto a year ago, to be precise, on the 5th of October, 2021. And what a year it's been. It's been a year during which we have had a major war, the conflict over Ukraine, rising tensions over Taiwan, not to mention stepped up technology wars against China, the unended pandemic, the launching of AUKUS, mounting US foreign policy disasters amid what has happened over the past year. We've even forgotten about what was one of the biggest events when we launched our manifesto, namely the disastrous US withdrawal from Afghanistan. We've seen the manifest decline, economic decline of the West with the return of stagflation, the advance of the left in Latin America, political unrest in countries as diverse as Sudan and Sri Lanka, increasing assertion of countries in Africa, Latin America, and Asia, the boomeranging of Western sanctions against Russia, putting European governments on trial, and putting the very survival of the European Union and NATO in question. The US losing nearly all its allies in the Middle East and now waving the nuclear specter. I could make this list much longer. Just keeping up with the news seems to have become a full-time job. So how well has the manifesto stood up to this tumultuous year? This is what we are here to discuss. Our various contributors are here to start off the discussion, and their presentations will be followed by a wider discussion among us, so we may all reflect on the significance of what we have said in the manifesto and done as the IMG, and what we should say and do as we go forward. So let me just start by quickly listing out what I take to be our very core thesis, that capitalism is well past its use-by date, that more and more countries led by socialist China are standing up for international law and the original anti-imperialist purposes of the UN Charter, and against US exceptionalism, Western exceptionalism, NATO, and the so-called rules-based international order. That contemporary socialism, contrary to the end of history thesis, has a century-long record of resistance to capitalism, intervening at decisive junctures even to save capitalism's own skin, for example, by first saving it from fascism and then providing some of its major tools for the so-called socialistic measures that provided the foundation of the golden age. That in retrospect, it is clear that both capitalism and imperialism had reached their apogee in 1914 when the 30 years crisis first started. That the underlying capitalist character of Western economies first led it to crisis in the 1970s, and the application of neoliberalism since then has solved nothing and only made capitalism more predatory, speculative, and financialized. That the left in this era, thanks to mistakes going back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, not only failed to make any revolutions, but also ended up with the bargain of certain socialistic measures as domestic reform by signing up to anti-communism, and then later on signally failed to use the neoliberal era, which should have been a major opportunity for left mobilization to fight capitalism and fight neoliberal capitalism. So today we have a pathetic situation in which the opposition to the neoliberal establishment is coming from the right and not from the left. That the record of socialism so far underlines the truth that Marx and Engels understood very well, that socialism will be built not just by classes, but also by nations. And that the resistance of nations has led not to unipolarity, but to multipolarity and pluripolarity. And that the Western and US reaction against this has not led to a peace dividend after the end of the Cold War, but instead to rising Western and US militarism. And that this militarism is essentially leading more and more countries to move away from the West and ally with that camp, which is going to which is essentially led by socialist China, and essentially putting them on a path to pluripolarity, which will eventually is the only path to socialism. So those are some of the things we have argued. And thinking about how these theses have fared over this past stormy year, I was reminded of what Marx said in an 1847 speech on free trade. He was speaking at a time when capitalism was only nascent, and he said that the advance of capitalism would give its laws, which embodied and expressed all the most astounding contradictions of capitalism, it would give these laws an increased force, a surplus of truth. I believe this past stormy year has certainly done just that for our manifesto. It has given our manifesto an increased force, a surplus of truth.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto Group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on the screen.